Hello and welcome back to the Everyone Watches Women's Tennis podcast, a tennis podcast that is solely focused on the women's game, giving you regular updates about what is taking place on the WTA Tour, both on and off the court. Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm very sorry, long time no speak. I'll just keep it brief. I've just not been feeling well and it's been difficult to record, edit, and do everything I need to do to give you guys a good quality podcast episode. So I decided to just take a little break, which is wild since I've only released 2 episodes, but sometimes you just have to look after your mind and your body. But I do appreciate you coming back and spending this time with me today. And it is Grasscourt season, not just Grasscourt season, it is Wimbledon in about 24 hours. And there's a lot to get through. With that being said, before we got any further, I realized that in the first 2 episodes, I never actually introduced myself by name. So maybe it's a bit awkward. You like listening to this person talk, but you don't know them that well. So, well, not even don't know them that well. You don't know the basics. So the basics are, my name is Matipa Ishe. I go by Mati most of the time, but feel free to call me either Matipa Ishe, Mati, or Matipa. I will answer to all. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say, honestly. I do have a name. I'm not just like a talking voice, you know. For this podcast episode, we'll be going through the short but very important Grasscourt season, which I think does give you some telltale signs about people where their headset is at, where their tennis is at going into Wimbledon. But I also think it's not the be all end all because Wimbledon can be very unpredictable. And we'll just go through the champions of the past 3 weeks, since it's a 3-week season, not counting Wimbledon, of course, and the 6 tournaments that have just occurred. And we will also take some time to look at the draw, my draw reaction, do some predictions, and that's about it. To be honest, it sounds like it's not a lot of things to cover. If you go into enough detail, it becomes a lot to cover. So I hope that's enjoyable for you. Okay, so first up, this might actually be some news that you might have missed regarding the WTA Tour, but I think it's important news to share, specifically because we're focused on the women's game. There was an announcement about I'd say 2 weeks, 3 weeks back, announcing that on the WTA Tour, they'll be introducing new fertility protection special entry ranking rule. So this provides players with rankings protections while they undergo a fertility procedure. Example, egg freezing or embryo retrieval, and there's some qualifications for it, mainly similar to rankings protection, which I haven't gone over, but you can Google it. But just ranking protection when people have a child and go away for a while, or are injured. Anyway, so the 4 things, the criteria, I guess, it's players ranked between 1 to 750, both in singles and doubles. They must be out of tournaments and competing for 10 weeks for a fertility procedure. Thirdly, the ranking can be used to enter 3 tournaments that are WTA level 500, 250, and 125. And the ranking protection is based on a 12-week average of your WTA ranking. And I think this incentive, this rule I think it's something important and very welcome on the circuit, on the tour, especially women trying to balance their careers and then also family planning. It's sometimes something that they have to choose one or the other. So I do appreciate that the WTA Tour is taking steps to making it an easier process and providing different avenues and providing also just support for players that are family planning or are thinking about their future after tennis, because this tennis thing isn't forever, but I guess your family is. So it's important to look at it from that perspective. So I do appreciate that from them. And I think it's also understanding that women are different from men in terms of how they have to look at their careers, their bodies, and their futures. Just a little food for thought. And now moving on to the tennis, or the tennis playing, we'll just be recapping the past, I was about to say 6 weeks. It's not 6 weeks. It's a lot shorter than that. The past 3 weeks of the Grasscourt season and the 6 tournaments that were played at different levels, ranging from 250 to 500. it's brief overview because if I was to do this in depth, we would be here for ages. Anyway, so we'll start with the first tournament, which was the Libema Open. That's held in Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands. Well, actually, it's a city just outside Hertogenbosch in the Netherlands. And this tournament was won by Elise Mertens in straight sets against Elena Gabriela Ruse. And she won that 6-3, 7-6. I will say this, Elise Mertens is one of my favorite tennis players, not even in terms of like tennis playing and style. I just like her consistency. She's been around for ages and she's been uber consistent in all that she does, in her singles and in her doubles. I mean, her doubles, more than consistent. She's been at the top. But I just like watching her, I like seeing her in the draw. I like seeing what she's going to do. I like seeing what upsets she might cause. You never want to draw her in anything, in a Grand Slam, in any other tournament. And I just like her. I think she has a lovely demeanor on the court. And yeah, she's just one of my favorite tennis players. And on her way to the final, actually, against Rusa, she saved 11 match points in her semi-final match against Ekaterina Alexandrova, which is really, really impressive. Being able to like stand your ground and be steady is, I think, one of the most amazing things I find about tennis, because the margins are so thin. The ball being in and the ball being out is millimeters. So well done to her. And then she went on to win the title. So sometimes you just have to play that extra shot. You have to try and hit that winner, because that might be the difference between you lifting the trophy and you going home a game earlier. And then the next tournament was the Queen's Club Championship. The last time there was a women's event at the Queen's Club was actually in 1973, which is over 50 years ago. So it's nice to see its return. Very nice. And I think this tournament and this tournament winner has been the story of the Grasscourt season, with Tatiana Maria winning in straight sets in the final against Amanda Anisimova, 6-3, 6-4, which made her the oldest woman to win a WTA 500 title, as well as the oldest woman to win a title on the WTA Tour since Serena Williams, who won at 38 years old in Auckland. Tatiana is about 37 years and 10 months old. So brilliant to see. She's a mother of 2 daughters, and her daughters were there in the final, and it was just beautiful to see. And I think it's probably like a memory they'll hold very dear, seeing their mum. I think even just watching their mum play tennis, she doesn't have to win, watching her go out and play tennis. But I think watching her win and actually hitting career highs at this age, because she's currently ranked number 43. She reached her highest ranking, 42, last year in January. Sometimes it's like, keep going. You don't know when your peak is. If you still feel like you can play, keep going. In terms of that's tennis, but in terms of life, not me giving life advice, this is not an advice podcast, but in terms of life, and this is advice to myself as a 23-year-old who sometimes feels like they're behind, just keep going. You don't know when your peak is, and there's so many things you can peak at in life. But anyway, sorry, me putting in a little bit of life advice there for the kids. And on her way there, even more impressively, before I move on, she beat 2 Grand Slam champions in Madison Keys and Elena Rybakina, and 2 Grand Slam finalists in Leila Fernandez and Karolina Muchova, and only dropped 1 set on her way to the title. So impressive. I was so impressed, because each match I was watching, I was like, oh, okay, like Tatiana's played well, but you know, her time, like when she played Madison Keys, I was like, she's played really well to get past Fernandez and Muchova. I'm sure Madison Keys will be able to beat her, you know. That didn't happen. Next match, I was like, okay, she's playing Grand Slam champion, not just a Grand Slam champion, someone who's won Wimbledon on grass, in Elena Rybakina. Same thing, got rid of her, quite tidy. Then final, very tidy final as well against Amanda Anisimova, who is having one of her best years. So that was really, really lovely to see. I think some of my other insights from that tournament would be they're playing well. I think Amanda Anisimova played really, really well, especially in the match against Qin Wenjiang, because there were times when she was down or the momentum just shifted and she was able to turn it back into her favor. So it was nice to see. And then Elena Rybakina also played relatively well. You always want to see more, but I'm not going to be too technical and be too in depth. The switch up, the transition from clay to grass is really difficult. So I'll leave that there in terms of the queens. The next tournament was Berlin Open, and the draw for Berlin Open was stacked. It had 7 out of the top 10 players in the draw and 2 Wimbledon Grand Slam champions in Marketa Vondrousova and Elena Rybakina. And Marketa Vondrousova ended up taking this one, the 2023 Wimbledon champion. She won in a pretty, I would say it was a hotly contested match against Jinyu Wang, who was also a surprise finalist. She played really well, Jinyu, to get even to the final. I'll just quickly go through the people that she beat to get to the final. First round, she beat Daria Kasatkina, 6-3, 6-2. Then she beat Coco, 6-3, 6-3. Then won against Bedosa via walkover, but she had won the first set 6-1. Then she beat Samsonova, who's been playing really well, especially on the grass, 6-4, 6-1. And then ended up losing to Vondrousova. But really, really brilliant tournament from her, especially that match against Coco. I thought at some point like Coco will come back in, but she didn't let her. She just stood her ground and played her game. And to the winner, Marketa Vondrousova, we know her pedigree on grass. Obviously, she is a Wimbledon champion. I will say something about Marketa. I did see her at the French Open and I was impressed by her level. She lost in the third round to Jessica Pegula, but I think it was more so of just being more match ready, because it was a 3-set match. It wasn't just a straight set victory for Jess. It wasn't a walk in the park. And on her way to the final, Vondrousova, she beat Madison Keys, Diana Schneider, Ons Jabeur, and Arina Sabalenka. And she beat Arina in straight sets. And that's a really difficult draw because her rankings dropped due to injuries. So getting that draw and being able to come out the other side of it bodes very well for Wimbledon. And she was already someone to watch for Wimbledon, but now even more so. I think now people are worried. No one wanted to draw her in that draw, but we'll get into that later. And then the next competition was the Nottingham Open, which was won by McCartney Kessler of the United States, and she beat Ukrainian Diana Yastremska in straight sets, which was 7-6, 6-4. And McCartney Kessler's had a quietly good year. A lot of people haven't talked about her. This is now the second tournament she's won this year. She won Hobart before the Australian Open, and she beat some solid grass court players, a field of players that you want to start beating if you want to rise up the rankings, and that's what she did. She beat Haddad Maya and Katie Bolter on her way to the title. And then the second last tournament played was Bad Homburg, and that saw Jessica Pegula beat Iga Swiatek in straight sets, which was 6-4, 7-5. And updated their head-to-head to be 5-6, still in favor of Iga, but that gap is almost completely closed. And Jess also ended Iga's 9-match final winning streak. She's won 9 finals in a row, which is insane. I will say though about Iga, she's obviously lost in the final, but it was her first time being in the final for this tournament. And she looked pretty good on the grass, which is known as her weakest surface. She served really well and played really well throughout the whole tournament. I just think Jess was too steady, but I think Jess was very, very steady throughout the whole competition, not just this match, but in the semi-final before when she played Noskova had the opportunity to serve for the set and she couldn't do it because Jess was steady, didn't panic, and played her best tennis when she needed to. Even against Iga, that's the same thing that she did. And then lastly, we had the Eastbourne Open, which was won by Maya Joint of Australia. The 19-year-old beat Alex Iala in 3 sets, 6-4, 1-6, 7, and she saved 4 championship points to do it. And it's also her second title this year. I think her second title in about 2 months, maybe a month and a half, because she won in Morocco just before the French Open. To be honest, that tiebreak was my heart was in my stomach. It was such a toss-up and a really heartbreaking loss for Iala because she had those 4 championship points and she cried when she eventually lost that match. But the tiebreak was a toss-up. I just think Alex didn't play the big points well enough or steady enough. And she made, or overhitting, I think, a little bit. But then it's hard sometimes because you have to go for it. Your opponent doesn't let you win. You have to win. And I also think Maya was steady and very gritty. She didn't let the game get away from her. But I will say about Alex, I'm really happy to see her in a final and finally start building on that Miami Open win. After the Miami open run, she didn't have the best continuation in her year, especially on the clay. She was out first rounds or not making it through qualifying. So it's good to see now that she's finding her stride and hitting her stride. And maybe she just loves the grass. Also, marvelous job from Maya. It'll be interesting to see where her career goes, especially being an Australian and I'm here in Australia. I will be keeping a close eye on her. Okay, so now the time has come to review the Wimbledon draw and put in my predictions. I am going to preface this by saying, as I think I've said before, predictions, especially at like the start of a competition, I don't think are my strong suit. I overthink too much. When the tournament is going on, I'm better at predicting things or like match to match, which I think is everyone. Like, how can you predict an entire tournament? I find that really difficult. But I also take it maybe too seriously and like overthink everything. That's me giving you a warning. And if you don't agree, let me know. We can talk about it. We can discuss it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to start with before we go into like my initial reaction to the draw and then going into the predictions now that we have the draw is my original thoughts. My thoughts going into Wimbledon, who I thought was going to do well. And I'll say something about Wimbledon. I think it's one of the more difficult, actually no, I think it's the most difficult Grand Slam to predict because a lot of these people don't have a lot of matchups on grass. So you have nothing to go back on. Well, you don't really have a history to look at. They don't play a lot on grass, so the sample size is a lot smaller and the preparation can be up and down for everyone. Some people will not play any tournament and then come in and win Wimbledon. So I just think sometimes it's difficult to look at and make a prediction. And I will say about like 10 people, I will mention them by name when we're going through it. There's like 10 people, maybe even more, that if you said to me, oh, they won Wimbledon or they'll win Wimbledon 2025, I wouldn't even fight you on it. I would not be surprised at all because, yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what happens. And with Wimbledon as well, no one has won it back-to-back since Serena Williams, 2015 to 2016. There hasn't been any consistency. The only consistency has been the past two Wimbledons have been won by two Czech players. So that's Barbora Krejcikova and Markéta Vondrousova. So maybe there's something in that, wink, wink. And if that's why I think it's just so hard to predict. There hasn't been any consistency, you know? I rambled for a little bit. Sorry. What I was saying was, before I tell you what my initial reaction to the draw was, my prediction before the draw is some names just to throw out there. Had Sabalenka, Keys, Anisimova, Vondrousova, Rybakina, and Svitolina. People that I thought, hey, you're in with a really, really, really good chance. So going into my draw reaction, or my draw first impressions, I wanted to watch the draw like live, but somehow the Wimbledon link wasn't working for me. But my first impression was, what the heck? That was my first impression of the draw because I looked at it and I was like, my gosh, no one's liking this. No one is having a good time. None of the top seeds look at this draw and go, oh, I'm glad I'm a top seed. I think some of them are thinking, I wish I was ranked a bit lower, or I wish I was a wild card or a qualifier so I could sneak into a different part of the draw, because I would talk about the top four: Sabalenka, Arina Sabalenka, Coco Gauff, Jessica Pegula, and Jasmine Paolini probably looked at their draws and they said, who made these and why do they hate me? That was my initial reaction. And I think in the tennis world, because there tends to be like a notion of this person got an easy draw, which I sometimes say. I say it often, actually. I'm like, oh, that was an easy draw. And there is something to that. But I always say in tennis, you beat who's in front of you. But in terms of this draw, no one can say there's an easy draw. No one can complain that someone got an easy draw. I don't. Even if someone got a slightly easier draw, you can't really complain about it. Everyone's going to have to work hard. Whoever wins. I did say, like, no one got an easy draw, and I stick by that. I think the only person that I am looking at, because I do have the draw in front of me now, because we're going to be going through my picks, was that Jessica Pegula probably came out as the winner. Yeah, I think Jess came out as the winner in this draw. Okay, so before I do my draw predictions, that's just going round by round each match and picking a winner until we get to the end. I'll just go through some of my players to watch. That will be seeded but outside of the top 10, unseeded, young players, and likely upsets. So I'll start with the players to watch that are seeded, but they're outside the top 10. Because I don't know, I think if you're a top 10 player, you should always have a chance to win a Grand Slam. That's my thing. If you're a top 10 player, you should go into every Grand Slam being like, I could win this. I want to win this. I think obviously every player wants to win a Grand Slam, but the mindset should be, as a top 10 player, let me make sure I get to the semi-final at least. It rarely works out that way, but I hope that's their mindset. Anyway, back to my players to watch outside top 10 but seeded. I've got Alina Svitolina. She has a high pedigree at Wimbledon. I would say it's her best slam. She's made the semi-final twice. Last year she made the quarterfinals. The year before that she made the semi-finals. And I think if there's ever a chance for Alina, it's on grass and it's at Wimbledon, where people aren't as steady as they normally are on all the other surfaces. And I think if she's going to win a Grand Slam, the time needs to be now. She has to push now. Then the second player I've got is Ludmila Samsonova. I just think she's been playing well. I think she needs a big result at a Grand Slam as well to showcase her consistency of her career so far. She played well at French Open, and I think she should have gotten a big result. She should have made it to the quarterfinals. She had opportunities against Chinwen, but she didn't take them. So hopefully the opportunity arises now. Then thirdly, I've got Amanda Anisimova. Again, Amanda's been having a great year. I think probably her best year to date. She's won her first 1,000 titles, her biggest title, and she's played really well on grass. She made that final of the Queen's Club Championship, and I think she plays well on grass. I liked her movement from what I've seen. But from what I've seen, and not just on the grass, what I've seen from her from Grand Slams and her attitude and her, I guess, hunger this year, it wouldn't surprise me if she was in the semi-finals or even lifting the trophy. But it's been a while since an American woman has done that, not lifted a trophy. Coco just lifted it like last week. I mean, lifted a Wimbledon trophy. And then lastly, I've got former champion Milena Rybakina. Again, she looked very good in Berlin, although she did not convert 6 match points against Sabalenka. I feel like she has the game. Obviously, we know she has the game. And I think if games are like easier, she just gets through them. But there seems to be some sort of like hangover, some sort of inability to overcome adversity. Is that too much? But in tight matches, she doesn't have that edge anymore. She used to be a player you could back. She was very like bankable, but now she doesn't seem to have the edge anymore. But the game is there. If she's playing her best tennis, I don't doubt she'd make it to a final. And then these ones that are unseeded, I'll be honest, I just did some picks. They're not random, but they're also people that I want to see do well. So it's like, 50-50, it's stats and tennis history, and then the other 50 is heart, which I think goes a long way in tennis. So first I've got Jessica Buses-Monero. She played really well. She played really well at the Australian Open. She just happened to play the world number 1 in the second round, but she played well in that match. And then at Roland Garros, she lost in the third round to Hailey Baptiste after outing Emma Navarro in the first round, 6-love, 6-1. And I think she was a very aggressive game and very attacking game. She's an attacking player. So it would be nice to see her do well. And I think she's slowly building on all her performances. Then next I've got Hailey Baptiste, who again is also building on her performances. She has a great serve, offensive player. I would like her to be a bit more offensive. And I would also like her to sometimes choose the easy option. I think you might have heard me say that in the last episode. But Hailey has started making strides in the bigger tournaments, like at the Grand Slam, the last Grand Slam, Roland Garros. She made it to the 4th round, losing out to a top 10 player. Understandable. So hopefully she can keep making those strides here at Wimbledon. And then lastly, I've got for the unseeded players, I've got Zhenyu Wang, and she played really well at the Berlin Open. I was really impressed with her game and how she was taking it to players. Even in that final against Vondrousova, she took the game to her and then unfortunately faded away in the final set. But it wasn't an easy match for Vondrousova whatsoever. So it'd be nice to see her do something or build on that here at Wimbledon. And then for the 2 young players to watch, I've got Maya Joint. I will say she has an unfortunate first round match. It's a really unfortunate first round match for her. I wish she had a different one. I still believe she'd be able to win it. But again, it's difficult. But she's one to watch, not just for Wimbledon, one to watch in the future. Only 19. And then I've got Eva Jovic, who is 18. She is also one to watch. She's been making a lot of waves for the past couple of years, especially on the ITF Tour in the 125 competitions. So it would be nice to see her do well here. And I think she's got a good first round match. We'll take a look at it. And then quickly, I've just got some upset alerts here. We've got Ostapenko. She is injured. Well, I don't know if she's injured, but she did pull out of her match due to injury. Her first round match is not one she would like, I don't think, is Soné Katal from Great Britain. So she'll be playing Soné on her home stage. And that's probably something that would frustrate Yelena unless she can just block out the crowd. And yeah, grass isn't her best surface. But also with Yelena, you never know what's going to happen. She'll either play really well and be and just knock everyone out of the park and you'll be surprised, or she will go out with a whimper, which is what's been happening more often lately. And then I've got Coco Gauff again. I will go deeper into the draw, but that match against Yastremska is not looking nice, especially considering their last match in Madrid. She did end up winning, but it was a tussle. And I think Yastremska has more of a chance on the grass. Then the other upset I've got is Chinwen, who is playing Siniakova, who has beaten her their last 2 matches. Siniakova, who has a 2-1 positive record against Chinwen. The 2 times she has beaten her has been on grass, once in 2023 at Wimbledon, and then last year in Berlin. And both those wins over Chinwen were in straight sets. So I'm not feeling too good about that one. And then lastly, we've got Mira Andreeva. I don't think Mira likes the surface and she hasn't been playing well, to keep it short and simple. Okay. So finally, I'm going to go and pick a winner for every match. I will see if I can upload I've got a PDF here. Upload a blank PDF of the draw, but also my filled out version. I will let you know the PDF, if you just look up Wimbledon draw PDF women's, it should come up on the internet and you can download it if you want to look at it that way. But we'll just go match by match. This might take a while. So the first couple of rounds, I'm just going to quick. I'm not even going to go through my reasons why. And I will just let you know, some of my picks can be emotional. I'm not going to tell you which ones are emotional because I try and remain as neutral, but everyone has favorite players and I do have favorite players that I want to see do well. So in some instances, I might just pick them because I want to see them do well, even though there could be an upset on the cards. I'm going to do the draws in quarters, and for some of them, I'm going to give some explanations. For the others, I'm not, because it might get too convoluted while you're listening, but I'll do quarter by quarter until we get to like the quarterfinals, and then I will do all of them together. So we'll start with the first quarter, which is Sabalenka's quarter, and she's the number 1 seed, of course. So these first couple of rounds will just do them very quickly. No explanations as to my reasons. And then as we go further into the draw, I will probably give some backing and reasons for it. So we'll start with Sabalenka versus Carson Branstein of Canada. Sabalenka through. Then we've got Lulu Sun versus Marie Buskova. Lulu Sun was a quarterfinalist last year, but I go Buskova for this one. Then we've got 2 people from Great Britain. We've got Emma Raducanu and Mingje Zhu. And I've got Emma going through. And then next round, we've got Maketa Vondrasova and McCartney Kessler. I've got Maketa going through. And then I've got Elise Mertens versus Linda Fravitova. I've got Elise going through, Elise Mertens. Then we've got Anne Lee versus Victoria Golubic, and I've got Anne Lee going through. Then we've got Varvara Gracheva versus Alexandra Sasnovich. I have got Gracheva going through. Then we've got Anna Bonda versus Elina Svitolina. I've got Elina Svitolina going through. And then we've got Paula Badosa versus Katie Bolter. This is if Paula has not pulled out and she plays the match. I've got Paula Badosa going through. Then we've got Greet Minen versus Olivia Gadecki of Australia. I've got Greet Minen going through. Then we've got Anka Todoni and Christina Buska. I've got Todoni going through. Then we've got Kim Burrell versus Donna Vekic. I've got Vekic going through. And then we've got Leylah Fernandez versus Hannah Klugman, wild card from Great Britain. I've got Hannah Klugman going through, upset alert. Then we've got Peyton Stearns versus Laura Siegemund. I've got Laura Siegemund going through. Then we've got Olga Danilovich versus Shuai Zhang of China. I've got Olga Danilovich going through. Then we've got Elena Gabriela Rusa versus Madison Keys, and I've got Keys going through. And then back to the top, because this is the first quarter. Then second round, we've got Sabalenka versus Puskova. I think Puskova could give Sabalenka a match, but we still should trust the world number one. So Sabalenka. And then we've got Emma Raducanu, Vondrousova. I think Emma does play well on the grass, but I mean, Vondrousova, her showing at Berlin and the fact that she's won this before, Vondrousova. Then we've got Elise Mertens versus Anne Lee. I think Elise's consistency makes me pick her. So Elise. And then we've got Varvara Krejcikova versus Elina Svitolina. I think for this one I have to pick Svitolina. Then we've got Badosa Greet-Minan. Healthy Badosa, if she's healthy, I pick Badosa over Greet. Then we've got Anka Todoni versus Donna Vekic. I will say Anka has a game to trouble anyone, and Donna included. But I think Donna did well last year to make the semi-final, and I think she'll want to reach that same success again. So I'll pick Donna Vekic. Then Klugman versus Laura Siegemund. I think you always need a story of the Grand Slam, right? So what about this young wild card from Great Britain to beat Laura, the veteran, to make it through to the third round? Okay, I just like a story. Say Klugman to make it to the third round. And then we've got Danilovic versus Keys. I think Keys should be comfortable enough to make it to the third round. And then that's the end of that. That's the end of that. And then from third round to fourth round, this is when it becomes very difficult. Very, very difficult. Where my heart is saying things, but my head is saying something else. Okay, so the next matchup is, if it happens, will probably be the matchup of the third round. And as I was saying, I think all the players, when the draw was coming out and saw that Vondrousova is unseeded, they were all praying that she would not land in their quarter, let alone like even their half. And unfortunately for Aryna Sabalenka, she landed in her quarter and due to meet her in the third round if they both do what they have to do. So for this one, my pick is, okay, let me just give you some background. So they literally played like 2 weeks ago in Berlin. Vondrousova won that in straight sets. I didn't watch that match, so I don't have any insight in terms of the tennis, but the scoreline was not a great one for Aryna. It was 6-2, 6-4. And Vondrousova actually won their last meeting before that one, which was on clay in 2024, and that was in 3 sets. But they do have a 4-4 head-to-head, so it's very equal. I will say, though, this is Sabalenka in a Grand Slam, and I think she wants a Grand Slam this year. She always wants a Grand Slam, but if she's made 2 finals and doesn't end this year with at least 1 Grand Slam, I don't think she'll be pleased with that. So because Sabalenka is a different prospect in a Grand Slam, and maybe Vondrousova's played too much tennis and it might get to her, which to be honest, I'm just making things up. She looks quite healthy and fit now and ready to play. But I'll just take the world number one, just because if I'm going to bet on someone making the final of a Grand Slam, I should bet on someone who's made the final of the last 3 Grand Slams. So Sabalenka. And then Elise Mertens versus Svitolina. Svitolina has a winning record against Elise. I think it's also pretty lopsided. And Svitolina has more pedigree on the grass, so she should do well to get through that third round match. Again, a difficult one for her as well. Okay, and then next we've got Paula Badosa versus Donna Vekic. They have actually only played once, which surprises me considering their ages and how long they've been on the tour for. But that was last year in the 4th round on grass at Wimbledon, and Vekic won that in 3 sets. So it's really hard to predict Paula because she gets injured and her body is what lets her down, not necessarily her tennis. And I think if she lost that match in 3 sets, not close sets, but still 3 sets nonetheless, a healthy Paula, I would pick her based on her performances this year, the Grand Slams, and the fact that I don't think Vekic has been on the same high. But I think Vekic will probably view, since she made it to the semi-finals, her best Grand Slam result. I think she will take this as a chance. So I pick Vekic for the fourth round. I should be a lot faster. There's so much more to get through. And then Hannah Klugman versus Madison Keys. I think they've never played, of course. And I think this is when the journey would end for Hannah, and Madison Keys moves forward. And then fourth round, Sabalenka Svitolina. Sabalenka Svitolina, that head-to-head is in favor of Sabalenka, with her winning 5 and Svitolina winning 1 match. They've never played on grass, so that's a different factor. But again, even in the tight moments and the close matches, I would pick Sabalenka. So we'll say Sabalenka over Svitolina. Then Vekic versus Madison Keys. For that one, I pick Madison Keys. So quarterfinals, we've got Madison Keys versus Marina Sabalenka. That one will leave as is and move on to the next quarter. So the next quarter is Jasmine Paolini's quarter. And first round, she plays Anastasia Sevastova. I take Jasmine to go through on that one. Then next match is Kamila Rakimova versus Aoi Ito of Japan. For that match, I'd say Kamila Rakimova. Then we've got Everlise versus Yu Yuan, and for that one I move through with Everlise. Then we've got Bernarda Pera versus Linda Noskova through to the second round. Then we have got Beatrice Haddad-Maia versus Rebecca Stromkova, but Haddad-Maia to the next one. Then next match is Harriet Dart of Great Britain versus Dalma Galfi of Hungary. That one, Harriet Dart should move through. Then I've got Janina Wickmeyer versus Renata Zarazua. I've got Wickmeyer moving through. Then we've got Yulia Putintseva versus Amanda Anisimova. I've got Anisimova moving through. Then we've got Moyuka Uchijima and Diana Schneider. I've got Diana moving forward. Then we've got Diane Perry and Petra Martic. I've got Petra Martic moving forward. Then we've got Victoria Tomova versus Ons Jabeur. I've got Ons going through. Then we've got Yelena Ostapenko versus Sonay Katal. I've got Sonay going through. Then the next match is Ashlyn Kruger versus Mika Stoysavljevic. Mika Stoysavljevic, wild card from Great Britain. I've got Ashlyn Kruger going through. Then next match, we've got Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova against Aya Tomljanovic, and that goes through. I've got Ayla Tomljanovic going through. Next match, we've got Naomi Osaka versus young qualifier Tally Gibson from Australia. I've got Naomi going through. Then we've got Katerina Siniakova versus Qin Wenjing. I've got Siniakova going through. I will say with my predictions, they're pretty I'm just picking the seeds. For most of them, there's some surprises there. For someone who thinks Wimbledon is unpredictable, I'm looking at my draw right now. It looks very predictable. But anyway, all right. Then second round of this order, we've got Jasmine Paolini versus Kamila Rakimova. I think Paolini will do well to go through. So I've got Jasmine third round. Then Linda Noskova versus Everlise. I've got Linda Noskova through to the next round. Then there's Beatrice Haddad-Maia versus Hannah Dart. I've got Beatrice going through. Then Janina Wickmeyer versus Amanda Anisimova. I've got Amanda through to the next round. Then we have Diana Schneider versus Petra Martic. I've got Diana Schneider through to the next round. Then Ons Jabeur versus Sonay Katal. I've actually got here Sonay Katal going through to the next round, and that is a upset alert. I didn't even mention Ons as an upset, but that is what I've got listed here. You have to make some bold predictions, And then I've got Ashlyn Kruger versus Tomljanovic. I've got Tomljanovic to go through. Then Osaka versus Siniakova. I've got Osaka to go through. Okay, third round of the second quarter. Jasmine Paolini versus Linda Noskova. Unfortunately, I don't have Jasmine retaining her finalist points. I've got Linda Noskova moving forward. Then we've got Beatrice Haddad-Maia versus Amanda Anisimova. I have Amanda moving forward to the fourth round. Then I've got Diana Schneider versus Sonay Katal. I've got Diana Schneider moving through to the fourth round. Then I have got Aya Tomljanovic versus Naomi Osaka. I've got Naomi Osaka moving through to the fourth round. And then in the fourth round, I've got Linda Noskova against Amanda Anisimova. I've got Amanda Anisimova moving through to the quarters. And then Diana Schneider versus Naomi Osaka. I have Diana Schneider moving through to the quarters. And then we'll leave those for now. Then moving forward to the second half of the draw, the third quarter, we've got Jessica Pegula's quarter. I think this is probably the best quarter any of the top seeds could have hoped for. Again, still difficult, but I think Jess will do really well, and I think she will push her way through to the semifinals. That's a spoiler alert, but let's just quickly go through it. Start at the top. We've got Mira Andreeva versus Maya Sharif. I've got Mira moving through to the second round. Then we've got Jill Teichmann versus Lucia Bronzetti. I've got Teichmann moving through then to the second round. And then I've got Hailey Baptiste versus Sorana Castella. I've got Hailey Baptiste through to the second round. Then I've got Anastasia Potapova against Magdalena Frek. I think Magdalena Frek through to the second round. Then I've got Barbora Krejcikova, our defending champion, versus Alexandra Ayala of the Philippines. I've actually got upset Alexandra Ayala through to the second round. Okay, I have more upsets than I thought. And I also didn't mention them before when I was talking about upsets. So I do apologize for that. Then the next match, I have got Caroline Dollarhide versus Arangsta Rus. I'm so sorry if I butchered your name. I always look at her name and I'm like, that is the coolest name ever. I need to learn how to pronounce it properly, her first name. Anyway, I've got Caroline Dollarhide moving to the second round. And then I've got Veronika Kudermetova, the older Kudermetova, playing Zhu Lin. And I've got Veronika Kudermetova moving through to the next round. Then we've got another popcorn match, which is Petra Kvitova versus Emma Navarro. I know I said I wasn't going to talk, but I think this is Petra's last Wimbledon. She has said that. So I want her to win, one last hurrah. She's won this twice. But I also can't have Emma going out in the first round in consecutive Grand Slams. So I just went safety and I said Emma Navarro. Then we've got Karolina Muchova versus Jinyu Wang. And I've got Wang going through to the second round. Whoa, too many. Okay, now I'm not following what I was doing before, which is just picking the seeds. Next match is Zeynep Sonmez versus Jacqueline Christian. I've got Jacqueline Christian to the next round. Then we've got Susan Lemens versus Eva Jovic. Against Eva Jovic. I've got Eva Jovic moving on to the second round. Then next matchup is Priscilla Hon versus Ekaterina Alexandrova. I've got ECAT moving on to the second round. Then next match is Magdalenette versus Elsa Jacquemot. I've got Magdalenette moving through. Then we've got Alicia Parks versus Belinda Bencic. Difficult match for Alicia and for Belinda, but I've picked Belinda Bencic to move through. Then next match is Katie Volinets versus Tatiana Maria. I've got Tatiana Maria moving through to the second round. And lastly, we've got Elisabetta Cocciaretto versus Jessica Pegula. And I have got JPEGs moving on to the second round. Back to the top. So second round of the third quarter. We've got Mira Andreeva versus Jill Teichmann. I think Mira Andreeva will get through that. And then I got Hailey Baptiste versus Magdalena Frek. I think Magdalena Frek will get through. We've got Alex Ayala versus Caroline Dollarhide. I think Alex will get through to the next round. We've got Veronika Kudermetova versus Emma Navarro. I've got Veronika Kudermetova moving on to the third round. And then next match, I've got Wang versus Christian. I've got Wang moving on to the next round. And then I've got Eva Jovic versus Alexandrova. I have got Alexandrova moving on to the next round. Then I've got Linette versus Bencic. I've got Linette moving on to the next round. Then Tatiana Maria versus Jay Pegula. I've got Pegula moving on to the next round. And then third round of the third quarter. The next matchup I've got is Mira Andreeva versus Magdalena Frek. These two have played each other 3 times already this year. The head-to-head is in favor of Mira 2-1, but that one win for Magdalena came about 2 weeks ago in Berlin in 3 sets. So I've actually picked her to go through to the fourth round. And then I've got third round Alexandra Ayala versus Veronika Kudermetova. I have got Kudermetova through to the next round. And then I've got Jinyu Wang against Ekaterina Alexandrova. I've got ECAT through to the fourth round. Then I've got Magdalene versus JPEGs, and I've got JPEGs through to the 4th round. And then 4th round, I have got Magdalena Frech versus Veronika Kudermetova. I have got Veronika Kudermetova moving on to the quarterfinals. And then last match for 4th round in this quarter is Alexandrova versus Jessica Pegula. I have got Jessica Pegula through to the quarterfinals. The last quarter I have here is the Coco Gauff quarter, which starts off with Iga Swiatek versus the younger Kudermetova, Polina Kudermetova. I've got Iga through. Then I've got next match is Katie McNally versus Jody Burrage. I've got Jody through. Then Camila Osorio versus Danielle Collins. I've got Camila Osorio through. Then Veronika Erjavec against Marta Kostyuk. I've got Marta through. Then Clara Towson versus Heather Watson. I've got Clara Towson through. Then Anna Kalinskaya versus Nina Stojanovic. I've got Anna Kalinskaya to go through. Then Maria Sakkari versus Anna Blinkova. I have Sakkari to go through. Then Elena Avanesian versus Elena Rybakina. I've got Rybakina through. Then we've got Kasatkina versus Emiliana Arango. I've got Daria Kasatkina to go through. Then we've got Irina Camelia Begu versus Kaya Juvan. I've got Kaya Juvan to go through. Then I've got Yulia Starobtseva against Francesca Jones. I've got Starobtseva going through. Then next match, such a horrible first round match for Maya, but Maya Joint versus Ludmila Samsonova. I have got Ludmila Samsonova through. Then Sophia Kenin versus Taylor Townsend. I've got Sophia Kenin through. Then we've got Jessica Bouzas Mineiro against Ella Seidel. I've got Jessica Bouzas Mineiro going through. Then we've got Victoria Azarenka versus Anastasia Zakharova. I've got Azarenka through. And then this match, it was hard to call. I'll be honest with you. I was thinking upset first round. I probably can still change my mind, but I'm going to back the number 2 seed here. Sorry, I haven't even said the matchup. It's Diana Yastremska versus Corey Gauff. I've got Coco going through to the next round. Then second round match, we've got Iga Swiatek versus Jody Burrage. I've got Iga through to the next round. Then we've got Camila Osorio versus Marta Kostyuk. I've got Kostyuk through to the next round. Then Clara Towson versus Anna Kalinskaya. I've got Clara through to the third round. Then we've got Sakkari versus Rybakina. I've got Rybakina through to the third round. Then Daria Kasatkina versus Kaya Juvan. I've got Kasatkina through to the next round. Then we've got Starobtseva versus Ludmila Samsonova. I've got Samsonova through to the next round. Then I've got Kenin versus Bouzas Mineiro. I've got Bouzas Mineiro through the next round. Then I've got Victoria Azarenka versus Coco Gauff. I've got Coco Gauff through to the next round. It's actually interesting. I think Coco and Azarenka are a bit similar players in terms of they can defend a lot, but Coco's serve is a lot better, especially now. And then third round, we've got Iga Swiatek versus Marta Kostyuk. I think Iga takes that one. Then we've got Clara Towson versus Elena Rybakina. I've got Rybakina through to the fourth round. Then we have Daria Kasatkina versus Ludmila Samsonova. I've got Samsonova through to the next round. And then we've got Gauff versus Jessica Bouzas Mineiro. I've got Coco going through to the fourth round. And then in the fourth round, I have got Iga Swiatek versus Elena Rybakina. So they meet again in the fourth round. I've got Elena Rybakina going through. Then I've got Ludmila Samsonova versus Coco Gauff. I've got Samsonova going through. So the quarterfinalists I have here, going from the top of the draw, I have Arina Sabalenka, Madison Keys, Amanda Anisimova, Diana Schneider, Veronika Kudermetova, Jessica Pegula, Elena Rybakina, and Ludmila Samsonova. Before I go through the quarterfinalists, like I said, this draw is difficult for a lot of people. Looking at, let's say, Iga, I think Iga, based on my predictions, which we know is gospel, after the second round, even the first round is a difficult match against Polina, depending on how Polina is playing. When you get to the third round and you play Kostyuk, if the right Marta, the fighting Marta, shows up, that is not an easy match in the slightest. And then if both her, Iga, and Elena Rybakina make it to the fourth round, I think I have to pick Elena Rybakina to get through that, because their match Iga's favorite surface was very, very close. And I think Elena threw that game away. If we're going to come to Iga's, I'd say, worst surface, again, she's good on everything, but this is not her best. Against Elena's winning surface and best surface, I would say Elena wins that one out. I'm just going through some key matchups. And also, before I go through the quarterfinals, I will give you some first round matches to keep an eye on. First, we've got Kessler Vondrousova. I did mention them earlier before because both of them won tournaments in the past 3 weeks. Vondrousova winning the 500 in Berlin and Kessler winning the 250 in Nottingham. So that's a horrible match for Kessler. I think she's like, all my hard work to be seeded for what? To play someone who's won a Grand Slam before, and not just a Grand Slam, the Grand Slam that I'm playing in right now in Wimbledon. So I hope she's ready to fight, because you kind of want some sort of an advantage being seeded, but that is probably the worst matchup she could have pulled. Then the next match, again, this is if Paula does play and it's a fit and healthy Paula. A good match to watch first round is Badosa versus Bolter, with the home crowd and also just a lot of hard hitting and some pure ball striking. Great match to watch. And then another match I think is Kudermetova Iga, depending on which Kudermetova shows up. This is Polina Kudermetova, the younger sister. I think if she is playing like she was playing in Brisbane, she can give Iga a match. And then the next one I've got is, of course, Yastremska versus Coco, because I'm kind of worried about Coco in that match. So I think it'll be a very interesting one to watch and keep an eye out for. And of course, Petra Kvitova versus Emma Navarro. I know Petra is not the same Petra who won 2 Wimbledons, but it's still a match to watch. And even if she loses 6-love, I think it'll be a good match to watch, just sending off a legend of the game. And I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of good matches. There are so many. I always think this, but these first rounds are, they're good. And then the last one, this is the last one I'll mention, is Krejcikova versus Iala. Again, upset alert, so I think good to watch that one as well. Okay, so the first quarterfinal I have lined up here with my predictions is Madison Keys versus Aryna Sabalenka. Their head-to-head is 5-2 in favor of Sabalenka. They've played on grass twice, once in 2021 where Madison Keys won, and then the second time in 2023 at Wimbledon where Aryna Sabalenka won in straight sets. So I think because it's not a final, I give the edge to Sabalenka. I think you're probably better to play Sabalenka in a final than any other match before then. I think a Sabalenka that's playing well beats Madison Keys. I think if both their games are at their peak, I think Sabalenka beats Madison Keys. So I think, Sabalenka through to the semifinals. And then we've got, so the second quarterfinal match we've got is Amanda Anisimova versus Diana Schneider. They have never played each other before. So I do not have a lot to go on except for their performances in the past couple of weeks and their past performances on grass, or not just grass, at Wimbledon. So Amanda Anisimova, the last time she played at Wimbledon, which was in 2022, she made the quarterfinals. And she's been playing very well recently. I mean, she's been playing well all year and the past couple of weeks, especially in Berlin. And then we've got Diana Schneider, who is a slightly younger player. She played Wimbledon last year, which was her first and only, and she made it to the third round. And she's not been playing as well as I would like to see her play this year. So I think I have to give the edge to Amanda Anisimova, especially in those tough moments. I think Amanda has the strength or the mental strength to pull out a win when needed. So yes, so our semi-finalists for the top half, I've got Aryna Sabalenka versus Amanda Anisimova. And then the second half of the draw, my first quarterfinal is Veronika Kudermetova versus Jessica Pegula. Surprise quarterfinalist in Kudermetova, but who knows? She's a former top 10 player. Okay, so the head-to-head for Jessica and Veronika is 2-1 in favor of Kudermetova. But Jessica did win their last match, and that was in 3 sets, and that was on hard court. I don't know. I think JPEGs has it. I think her mind is different. I think because she's made a Grand Slam final, that quarterfinal curse is gone. So I picked Jess to make it to the semifinal. And then I've got Elena Rybakina versus Ludmila Samsonova. Okay, so Elena Rybakina and Ludmila Samsonova's head-to-head is 4-2 in favor of Samsonova, but Elena Rybakina has won their last two matches, which was on hard court, so she's trying to turn around that head-to-head. Again, in the big moments, although I did say that she's been a bit shakier for the past year and a half, I back Elena to be able to get through this quarterfinal against Samsonova, who hasn't been at this stage before. And also, not just this stage, Elena's been here to win Wimbledon. And I think it's nice to have past experiences to draw on. All right, semi-finals. Oh my gosh. Okay, so my first ever video where I did my predictions for the year, I said I predicted Sabalenka to win Wimbledon, right? And she's made a lot of finals this year. So her making a final, although it's crazy making like 3 Grand Slam finals, I wouldn't put it past her. And technically, I should be going for my original prediction at the start of the year, but things change. I don't know. I know she recently played Anisimova she played her on clay. Arena's game has evolved a lot, and she has evolved it to clay, those drop shots, the slices, which she can obviously bring on grass. But something at the back of my head is saying that it's Amanda Anisimova's time, which I could be completely wrong about. And I know I keep like qualifying what I'm saying, but I don't know. I just get so like in my head with predictions. I think too much. I put too much of my heart into it. And their head-to-head is still positive to Anisimova. Like I said before, Sabalenka won their last meeting in straight sets at Roland Garros, but Anisimova won last year in Canada on hard court. And the head-to-head is 5-2, by the way. Sabalenka's a different game. She's a different person, a different player, especially, like I said, at a Grand Slam. I've said it before, you have to kill her at a Grand Slam. This shouldn't be as difficult as I'm making it seem. Originally, I had Sabalenka in the semi-final, in the final, and then I got in my head. I think it's because, I'll be honest with you, I don't want to put her in a final for her to lose. Yeah. I don't want to put her in a final for her to then lose a third Grand Slam final. I think she would pull out her hair. So you know what I'm going to do to save her the heartbreak? So I'm going to put Amanda Anisimova in the final over Sabalenka. And then the second semi-final is JPEGs versus Elena Rybakina. I think this is the most accurately predicted Grand Slam ever. Looking at this, Elena Rybakina has a losing record against Jessica Pegula. Jess leads the head-to-head 3-1. But the last time they played was at the WTA finals in 2023 in Mexico. And Jessica did win that. And that was, I would say, when Elena was at the peak of her powers. Guys, I promise you, these predictions are so sideways. But I also need to take the pressure off because predictions should be fun. Okay, I had actually had something else completely different written. My final had Elena Rybakina versus Sabalenka, with Sabalenka winning. But I have changed it completely. I've got Anisimova in the final, and I've decided to put Jessica Pegula in the final over Elena Rybakina, and my winner is Jessica Pegula. Yep, I'm not changing it. Let's end the episode now. Based on Marty's draw prediction, I have placed Jessica Pegula as the 2025 champion of Wimbledon, which I'll be honest would make me very happy, and I think would make a lot of people happy. No one would have any complaints for the most part. My prediction doesn't affect anything that happens. I like to think it does, but it doesn't. So that is that. Our preview to Wimbledon. I think it's going to be a very exciting Wimbledon. I'm very, very excited. I think this is the first time I'm most excited about Wimbledon other than the other slams in terms of the results. Because I think at the Australian Open, I'm always excited because it's like, oh, tennis is finally back. But this year, in terms of the results, I cannot wait to see what happens at Wimbledon this year. With all of that being said, I want to thank you very much for listening to this episode of Everyone Watches Women's Tennis. I hope you enjoyed it. And something I've realized, I haven't been putting my social medias in the description or letting you know what they are. I have an Instagram, which is EWWT podcast, and just chuck me a follow. I do post some videos on there, some content, some stats, some information. So if you want more information or even just to talk tennis, I'm available there. As well as I'll be starting a YouTube channel soon where I'll be posting these episodes, but also creating some like medium length to short form content about tennis. And it might also be the place where I will do reviews after every round, because I think with the podcast it can get a bit too much to do it after every single round. But again, thank you all for listening. I will see you next time.